My name's Jason Thomas. Zach, hello. I just got you on the line. I didn't even introduce myself.
It's nice to meet you.
We're talking to you, Zach from Hippo Campus, ahead of the release of Bambi. So you have two release dates for the album. There's September 29th, you have a digital release date, and then the physical, the LP and the CD coming out November 23rd. I think I got those right.
Yes, sir.
Is there a reason they're coming out separately, or just?
There's not a good reason. So the September 28th is just the digital because that's when we wanted to release it, but then the vinyl and well, it's actually just the vinyl coming out in November. It's just back order stuff. We couldn't get it printed fast enough. So
I gotcha. Okay.
That's literally it.
So I'm going to ask you all kinds of logistical questions.
Yeah, infrastructure stuff.
Yeah, the business side. That's what the people want to hear about, how things work.
I love it.
Okay, so September 28th, I think I was off by a day. That's when you can hear the album in full. You're playing Chicago, the Riviera Theater, Saturday night, October 6th. Tickets were still available last I checked, jamusa.com, if you're listening and you want to pick those up. So the album Bambi, I know you guys started the band. There was a great line from you guys to make your friends dance. And it was, was it a feel good, fun times, nothing but thing in the beginning?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, we were in high school when we started the band, so there was all these house shows that we just like wanted to play. So we started writing songs, and it was just like, that was it. And then, eventually we graduated high school, so we just started playing venues, and it kind of took off from there. But
yeah, and I'm reading about the new record, Bambi. I haven't spent a ton of time with it, a little bit of time, but some of the stuff I'm reading, they're getting into more serious issues and themes on this record, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. So, a lot of time has passed since high school, and we spent a lot more time, writing and recording. So we've grown a lot, but, we still like to touch on, the same themes, but it's just the whole process is different. So naturally, like, the music is just going to be different, and this is an extension of that.
Yeah, obviously just growing and maturing and having different experiences and being exposed to new music, and just people grow. Yeah, that was one of the things I noticed right off the bat. I remember hearing you guys for the first time a few years ago, and it's just seeing how young you guys were, but how accomplished you sounded musically. It was just it was a pretty cool thing. It's like, oh, these guys are going places.
I mean, we went to a performing arts high school, so we had to play our instruments. So, we could have sucked, but then our teachers would have failed us.
So not the average high school band is what you're saying.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And I've noticed this too, before your first album came out, was that just last year?
Yep.
The debut album, but you'd released a bunch of EPs before that. So EPs versus albums, I think to this date you've released 4 EPs, and we'll say 2 albums with the other one coming out this week. Is it was that a conscious decision early on to release music in smaller doses, or was that just what you had at the time, 4 or 5 songs, let's get this out? What was the thinking behind that?
Right. So at the beginning, we released Bashful Creatures and then South eventually. But those were just Bashful Creatures were this batch of songs that we really wanted to get out there. The longer that was out, the more we realized there was a bunch of old songs that weren't going to make a future release, so we wanted to get those out first. So that ended up being South, that EP. And then we recorded Landmark, and that went really well. But then there were some songs left over from that writing process that we didn't want to say goodbye to. And there was some that we had played live that fans really wanted to hear. So we released the Warm Glow EP after Landmark. And it served as kind of this add-on, this kind of follow-up to it, which, as a musician, I like to see artists kind of add their, not comment, it's like a director's cut almost of their music, where it's this is kind of what we were thinking.
Yeah.
This is the context musically. So I always like to have that additional perspective around the album musically, Each EP is kind of contextual. It's not oh, we love small doses of music. It's just oh, this would actually be pretty fitting to release this small batch of songs right now.
Yeah, because I wonder about that as time goes on, because I'm a little bit older than you guys, and I grew up with albums, and that albums are definitely a thing of the classic rock era. It's just what so many of us grew up with. That's how bands put out music, and then they tour behind the album. And then, but now it's just because I remember when iTunes started out, and it's like, oh, you can buy individual tracks. That's cool. And I just wonder, if people have the time to sit and listen. I mean, I know your album's pretty. I don't think your albums are incredibly long, but dedicating 60, 70 minutes to listening to a full album. I was just because I'd seen that you guys had released EPs, and it's kind of a cool way to do it. It's just you can kind of put a record out every 9 months, every you have music out there. You don't put out a record and then go away for 4 or 5 years and then come back. It's kind of a cool way for a young up and coming band to kind of stay in focus.
Totally, it's definitely like the small dose thing can be applied to like a modern, like radio friendly thing, like a streaming friendly thing in particular. But I love albums still like the most. Like you can convey such a detailed message and like cover so much ground that like singles obviously can't do. EPs have a harder time doing. I mean, we write a lot of music, so releasing an album like every 9 months, it's pretty fatiguing, especially for listeners. To try to keep up with it all. So we like to do an album, and then like if we have written more songs, or if there's songs we had written that we don't want to say goodbye to, it's nice to like a follow up.
Yeah, because there are some artists that are like so prolific, they'll put something out. It's like, what, really? Already? Like, I haven't even really absorbed the last record. I mean, there are extreme examples of that. The King Gizzard is one of them. Like, I can't even. Is this your 4th album this year, or your 5th album? And then, but like Ty Segall is somebody who's incredibly busy, and it's like, oh, you're releasing albums on his own, and he's got other bands, and it can be hard to keep up. So,
exactly.
that fatigue word that you that you threw out there, it's like I definitely know what you're saying. But if a band puts out a record, and then 9 months later, it's like, oh, here's a few more songs, like that. Totally, I think that works well.
It's not like draining for the listener, and as a musician, like we like to do things for ourselves and for our friends as well. So it's like, I don't know, someone that I really respect is like Blake Mills. He's this prolific guitar player, endlessly talented, and then he goes and produces like, record of the year with Alabama Shakes, and it's like alternative record of the year. That's just so cool.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You guys, being a younger band, this isn't like a deep philosophical music question. It's something I've noticed a lot going to shows over the years. But with younger bands, I see lots of phones at shows, phones up in the air and that kind of stuff. And there are artists like Jack White who are introducing things where like, hey, you stick the album, or you stick your you stick your phone in this bag or whatever, and it's sealed up through the show. So it's like you can't access your phone during the show unless you go out into the lobby. And so Jack White, he's really into that. He's an older artist, but then I see bands with younger audiences, and it's nothing but phones in the air. Is that something you guys even think about, even care about? It's something I've noticed over the years as a show goer, and I wanted to ask somebody in a younger band like what they think about it. Because I see like at Lollapalooza this past year that Post Malone was playing, and he'd play one of his hit songs, and it's 50,000 phones in the air. And then even a smaller show, I saw Rex Orange County in a little club with a pretty young crowd, and he plays his hit song, and it's just nothing but phones in the air. Is that Is this something it's just part of life, or is it annoying? Is it just?
Well, it's definitely something that we've noticed, right? Like we're on stage and like we play, a certain song, and all these phones shoot up, and we're like, okay. But we saw Mac DeMarco this one night on tour, and I think like before they played one of their big songs, like Viceroy or something, the bass player's like, "What is this, a goddamn Apple convention? Put those phones away." And we thought that was hilarious, but we're not like,
militant
about like, we're not militant. We're not trying to like keep people from, showing their phones, because it is like undoubtedly a great form of exposure as well.
Yeah, no, it's everyone's putting it on Instagram, and they're sharing, hey, look at this cool band. It's like, oh yeah, cool, but yeah, it does kind of interfere with the fan experience sometimes. So yeah, there's a delicate line to walk, I guess.
But I do think that the show is, that phone problem is an extension of you can't go to a restaurant without seeing someone take a picture of their food. You can't go to like a bar without seeing someone take a video of their friend. It's an extension of a bigger problem. If you will, it's like everyone's taking pictures of everything. It's like,
I have a I have a young son, and we'll go to he just started doing soccer class, and the kids are out there playing, and you look at the parents that are sitting there supposed to be watching their kids, and they all
Yeah.
have their faces down in their phones.
Right.
And
Like,
yeah, it's supposed to be like this magical thing that like seeing live music. It's this magical experience, and yeah, they're just kind of getting in the way. It's funny, like if you went back, I don't know, if you took me from like 15 years ago and put me in, just a public space now, I think that would be the first thing I notice. It's like, why is everyone like just buried in their palms? Like, what the hell is going on?
What the hell is going on? But I mean, I don't know. Maybe were newspapers like the form of distraction back then? Not that I'm trying to date you, but like, is that what it was like back then?
No, I mean, when I was a little kid, I mean, like a Walkman was a thing, and you could,
Right.
sort of throw that on if you wanted to just ride the train and not be bothered by anybody and rock out to your tunes. But the thing with the Walkman is, I grew up, listening to hard rock and heavy metal, and I listened to it loud, and that stuff bleeds out. They weren't like sealed earbuds, like in your ear. I mean, like everyone in the around you could hear what you were listening to.
Yeah.
So it's just different
More
times.
bothersome.
But no, to answer your question, no. Like the first concert I ever went to was Ozzy Osbourne. Like, was everyone in the crowd reading newspapers like when Ozzy when they get to a slow part? No, they weren't.
Yeah, good point.
But you have a tour coming up. You guys are like I said, playing the Riviera Theater on Saturday night, October 6th. Being in Chicago on a Saturday night, it's a good thing. You've been here several times. I'm sure you know.
Looking forward to it endlessly. I love Chicago.
I'm reading a book right now about classic rock, and one of the things that they address is the hard-working band on the road song, like Turn the Page from Bob Seger, We're an American Band, Grand Funk,
Sure.
Lodi, Creedence. What are your experiences being on the road? Because this is something that the longer I've done this and been backstage at concerts and seen like behind the curtain a little bit, it's just, you have this when you're a kid growing up, you see the videos on MTV and bands on the road and they're just, hanging out with chicks and they're drinking and having a great old time. But just like a working band on the road, like explain to somebody, I'm sure you do this too with like people that you meet, like, your parents' friends, like, oh, what's it like being in a band? But just like being a working band on the road, I'm sure it's still I'm sure the first couple of tours are incredibly fun, but then after a while, do you learn how to work and function and be productive on the road? How does that all work?
Right. So like, when my parents' friends ask me what the road is like, I give them the PG version. It's like, yeah, we like drink water before a show, and then you want to hydrate, so then we go and we get some rest, and it's a lot of fun.
Which is what you should be doing.
No, it's totally what we should be doing, but it's way more fun to not do that. It is what you think. But bands have their varying degrees of how much they want to indulge in like the party aspect of it, because you can have that if you want it.
Oh yeah.
And you can have like the drink water, go to bed early night too. I think we're just in the middle. We're like a pretty tame band. Like, we don't usually drink before shows. We usually drink after shows. It's like, it's just a good time. And you got to pace yourself, because like you're on tour every night is like a special occasion to someone. It's like, oh, you're going to see a show. Cool. Let's have a party.
Yeah.
So you kind of like, you can make that your job, or you can like tailor it. It's like, let's take it easy tonight. I just want to, eat some pie, go to bed. And then it's been hard figuring out how to work on the road, because like you can do that too. You can like bring like a mobile studio to the venue, just like some speakers, like an interface. You can try to write, and we haven't really done that all too much, just because we're trying to like figure out how to survive on the road first. Like,
yeah.
How do I get enough sleep? How do I be a good person? But now we're getting there. Like we have a bus on this tour, and we're going to try to like set up a studio in the back so we can write. And then, it's not like we're slogging it, because it's like we're having a ton of fun and we're not spraying ourselves too thin. But you kind of have to like give yourself the work ethic too, where it's like, I could just go drink right now, but I should probably write a song.
Yeah, absolutely. So having a little studio on the bus, maybe jam out some ideas at sound check. It's like, oh, that sounded good. Go back on the bus and lay it down,
Exactly.
something like that.
Exactly.
That's something I'm always interested to ask bands about. But the other thing too is like coexisting with, your bandmates too, because you spend a lot of time with someone, like certain little things like tend to get on your nerves, and
Oh
just
yeah.
and just that, like, it's like being in a relationship with like what, 4 or 5 other people. That's a cliche, but I mean, is that pretty
No,
accurate?
that's the analogy we use constantly. It's like a marriage that you don't get to explore sexually with anyone. It's just like we're chastised and we're married for life. So it's it's frustrating, but you love them because that's why you got married in the first place.
Until people start doing solo projects, then it's like having a little something on the side that
Yeah, it's like,
freshens
do you
things
love
up.
me? Why don't you look at me when we're making love? It's like, what's going on?
Why are you going off to make this solo record? Why are you saving all the good songs for that one?
We haven't crossed that bridge yet, but I would support my spouses in their endeavors.
All right. Well, hey, you've given us plenty of time. Thank you so much, Zach. Hippo Campus, new album Bambi coming out on Friday digitally, and then if you want the LP CD, it's back order. There were so many orders. He's like, hey, we just can't fill all these orders. We got to push it back.
That's right.
That's going to be out in November, and the show at the Riviera Theater again coming up on Saturday night, October 6th. Really a fine band on record and on stage. Hippo Campus, can't recommend them enough. So thanks so much for talking with us today, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, man.